All right, so this next subject is something we've talked about before, and this is one of those kind of big projects that got derailed a little bit because of my health stuff. But I want to bring it up again because there's been some movement on it and talk about why we need to do this. So currently we're using Java as kind of the core of our software. We're actually using a software suite called Groovy and Grails, which I don't know if anybody's heard of, but it's built on top of Java, and so it's really dependent on how Java behaves and what it does, and really dependent on the Java version. So we're on Java 8, Java 7, and we need to upgrade to 8 for a few reasons. And this is one of those things where it's going to be completely transparent to you. This is, your life is not going to immediately get better because of this. So I also just wanted to explain why so much effort is being spent into doing this. And Catherine mentioned this a little bit earlier when she was talking about the RC. Let me just get a little bit more info. So currently, I don't know if you know this, but if you're familiar with the JWS, the Jackalope Web Services, which is our sort of REST API for getting data, and specifically right now it's really used for roads and highways integration. That's actually a completely separate program right now, because we discovered when we were trying to implement Utah on the roads and highways synchronization that the ESRI ArcGIS server requires certain security ciphers that Java 7 cannot support by international treaty, we found out. So we had to write that synchronization interface using Java 8. So we kind of made a quick effort to see how hard it would be to upgrade Jackalope to Java 8, and we discovered, oh wow, this is going to be super duper hard. So we split Jackalope in two, sort of, and we said, okay, JWS is going to be under Java 8, and the rest of Jackalope is going to be on Java 7. And we've been in this sort of state for a while now, for like at least a year, where we've actually got 2 Tomcats running, 2 different internet ports, 2 different services running on the same machine. And it's really awkward and clumsy, and we don't want to do it. So, but it's something we had to do to get those security things to work. So we would really like to upgrade Jackalope to be Java 8, so we can just go back to having a single product again with 1 Tomcat, 1 port, et cetera, et cetera. The other big thing that came up this year was, I don't know if anybody noticed, there was a huge exploit in our world, the log4j exploit. It was a 0-day exploit, which means the hackers found out before anybody else knew it was going to be a problem. And so there's a certain set of versions of log4j, which comes bundled with Java, by the way, where there was a major exploit where malicious people could basically go in and have control of your host. They could run arbitrary commands on the host server, which is obviously pretty scary. And we received a huge number of requests from states to make sure we were in compliance, that we weren't within that range of versions, which it turns out we weren't in that range. We were actually underneath the minimum version. In addition to that, we don't use log4j. We use a different system for our logging, but that didn't matter. The fact that our version of Java had log4j in it still triggered IT department security scanners, and they were understandably worried that we were vulnerable to that exploit, even though we weren't. So the problem is we can't upgrade to the high watermark of that version. That version would require Java 8 to implement. So I think it was Kentucky's IT department asked us to go to this version, at least to log4j, just to make them comfortable. And we looked into it, and it turned out that was something that was going to require this Java 8 stuff for. So that's a big deal. We want to make sure your IT departments aren't understandably freaking out that they have a major source of vulnerability in our product. And then there are all a bunch of other security issues, or security updates that really ought to be in Java 8 for. Nothing as major as the log4j thing, but still, we should be on a modern platform, and Java 8 is that modern platform. So that's a big thing, is just security and being able to play with Esri. In addition, you know, the world of our tools has moved on, you know, since we started writing Jackalope, and there's much better ways to do things now that are more efficient. So, you know, upgrading to Java 8 gives us a lot more flexibility to upgrade some of our tool sets to be modern and run quicker. And that's a big thing, obviously, too. And then I already talked about consolidating Jackalope and JWS, which is a serious pain right now to have two different Tomcats. So that's why we needed to do that. How we do that has been a question we've been juggling for a long time now. And the initial thing was, well, let's just do it and, you know, handle whatever that comes. And after starting down that road, we discovered it's going to require a huge number of changes to the product. And it's going to undoubtedly make the product completely unstable. And we did not want to do that. So instead, we're taking very tiny baby steps, one minor release at a time until we can crest that Java 8 thing. And so this new release, version 8, you know, 1.0.8. something of Jackalope will get us halfway there. We've got one major release under our belt. So from Grails, we went from 2.2 to 2.3 in Java, or in version 8. And then hopefully in version 9, we're going to take the final step, which is 2.3 to 2.4, and we get to 2.4, that's where we can have Java 8. So we're doing this in baby steps because we do not want to make our product completely unstable. And so we just closed off the branch we had for those 2.3, and unless some things come up in the last few days, we're ready to merge that into our main dev branch for Catherine's RC that she's going to put out here in the next little while. And so we're obviously going to test like crazy. We're going to do a full suite of testing, understanding that we did just add some potential for regression problems, things like that, because we did have to make quite a few changes across the code base to get to this halfway point. So we're gonna, you know, spend extra time testing, make sure everything is really good, and then once we release this prod, we'll start the next half, which is getting us up to the 2.4 of Grails. So let's see. And so again, our main goal in all of this is to make sure you don't even notice until it's done. We don't want to make the product less stable, for sure. And again, you're not getting any magic new features as a result of this. You just have the potential for magic new features because we'll actually be on a modern platform now, and we can change up tool sets or whatever. So any questions or concerns? This was a super short one. I'm talking too quickly today. Any questions or concerns about this process, or any suggestions or anything like that? Just one of those things that has to happen. We wish we didn't have to do it, but we do. Yeah, I knew this was going to be a short one when we scheduled it. Let's see, we got a question, I think. Nicholas Black. Anything that we as user need to bring to our IT to help with this process? That's a good question, Nicholas. The short answer is no for this step, for the RC8 that Catherine's working on. No, there's not any. We were not upgrading our JVM. We're not upgrading anything. This is just mostly, well, no, completely internal package updates that does not have anything to do with anything else in the system. It's possible when we go to RC9 and then we're going to have to update the JVM. And there are other technical things that might have to involve your IT people. Honestly, at this point in time, I don't know exactly what that would be, but it's certainly possible. But I don't know what that is. After 8 is settled and the dust is cleared, we'll probably have a better idea because we'll have migrated up to there, and we'll have a better idea what underlying stuff has changed. But that's a good question. Christy says, any concern over testing of the lesser used AIs or UIs? I'm sorry, like mech. I mean, we're gonna test the bejesus out of it, Christy. I think that's our plan, including mech. I mean, I know mech is a big deal for you guys, and we'll certainly. We actually have a better idea of how to test that now. Part of our problem with mech before is it was so confusing on how to test it because there are rules that we didn't understand that weren't documented and stuff like that. But we can maybe discuss between us the best way to manage that process. Because yeah, that's a concern for sure. But we will include mech in our testing process. mech, if people don't know, is the manual entry of counts UI that lets you enter in data manually into the system. And Christy's right. Not a lot of people use it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, maybe you can explain what we've done up to this point. So we kind of broke out the Grails into 2 areas. One, testing everything in the UI. And number 2, then testing anything that the server processes, any of the logic that the server uses to run things, and kind of broke those into 2 areas and tried to identify any problems using the new Grails in the UI or running on the server that would generate a entry into the Jira, and then Jeff would fix it, and then we'd retest it, you know, or entry into a Jira, you would fix it and we would retest it. So I was just kind of describing the process that we went through.
That's true. We had 2 different branches, or two different areas of attack. And we'll have to do that over again. So basically what we did in our source control, we actually have a completely different branch for Jackalope right now. We have 2. We've got our normal dev branch, and then we've got this branch that uses this new version of Grails 2.3. And so what we've been doing is we've been testing the 2.3 branch and doing what Catherine just said, you know, going through every single server bit and then going through every single UI bit. And you guys found tons of things, unfortunately, but I think we've knocked them all off at this point. But then we need to merge this 2.3 branch back into our master branch, and that will require another set of testing, because anytime you merge things, it's always a little bit scary. So we'll be doing the same thing all over again. I'm assuming we'll have to do the server testing again after the draft or after the merge, and then as well the UI testing. And I'm not kidding. I think Laura and Catherine both tested like every single button that is in the system. Like there were some really arcane things, like, you know, things that used to work now just, you can't add a second role to the users or whatever. It's like, wow, okay. So you guys went crazy with the testing, which is good and appropriate. So that's going to be part of the RC testing. Once we merge back in, we'll have one consolidated branch again that's upgraded to 2.3, and then part of the RC testing will be going back through all this stuff all over again.
And Joe, isn't one of the reasons, I mean, this topic is on for user group, is that even though it's transparent to them, it will use quite a bit of HD resources over months of time. And so it might slow down certain other activities, you know, that HD is working on because it's required.
Yeah, that's certainly true. You know, we'll try to minimize it, and we are at least halfway down that path already. But yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Thank you, Susie. Is, you know, the question is, why the heck are you spending time doing this when we have these 14 jurors or whatever to work on? It's because we just have to get this done. It's been on our list for literally years, and we just have to do it. And so, but yes, you're right. That's that is why I wanted to talk about it with y'all, so you know why. So if there's any concerns, or I just don't think it's avoidable. I just don't think we cannot do this. We have to do it.
And this discussion helps curb the question that comes up later with a release note that comes out with maybe far less actual JIRAs in it that were addressed in the release because of the, let's say, 2 large JIRAs that are in it, which are the upgrades to the interface and server for this code.
Yeah. Right. Those
the
two
perception that we didn't do very much, I guess, is what we're trying to address.
Yeah, Catherine's right. You're going to see 2 JIRAs in there that's the innocuous things like server problems with 2.3. And those took like 50% of our time over the past 3 or 4 months. So maybe not that much, but a lot of time. So yes, thank you.
Okay, well then it sounds like I don't see any more questions in the chat. So I think the next session starts at 2
It's-
o'clock? Is
Yeah,
that one
at 3 your time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think we have really the whole group here. Should we still wait? Should we take another break, or should we start?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to predict. Are people going to be dialing in specifically for that? I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well, then I guess we will wait.
Okay.